You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Oh boy, here we are. It's happening.
It does feel like a Disneyland ride is happening up the escalator.
What would Jimmy Buffett do? That's a good one. That's a good one.
But I think that they think that tonight's like our first night at Margaritaville and they want us to come back. That's why they poured us 2 shots of... Well, then we're definitely coming back, just not tomorrow. It is our first night at Margaritaville. I know. As I said that, I'm like, I will be back.
On a breezy Monday night in early June, a few of our reporters braved the chaotic crowds of Times Square on a noble mission, a harrowing journey to a promised land, Margaritaville. Let me explain. Several weeks ago, we revisited the always fruitful topic of authenticity. We questioned its validity, and we proposed that authenticity is a tool rather than something quantifiable. We heard from anthropologists, chefs, professors, and even Samuel L. Jackson about its sociocultural significance in our foodways. But there was so much more that we wanted to say. What about the foods, drinks, restaurants, and production practices that fall outside of what's typically considered authentic? What about those that do so on purpose, hence Margaritaville? We called this purposeful inauthenticity and used it as a guiding light to report our stories for this episode. Possibly the most rewarding experience when reporting is going into a story with a certain angle and coming out with a completely different perspective. In looking at foodways that break the norms of authenticity, we learned that the binary between authentic and inauthentic doesn't quite exist. The waters were far murkier, and the questions of authentic to who and who has the power to say what's authentic came up again and again. So maybe it's those that are making their own rules, adapting in ways that feel genuine to themselves, committing to a certain idea, and standing proudly by those choices that are the most authentic expressions of all. From entire cuisines to communities and individuals, we celebrate embracing what feels true to self, even if it doesn't always feel true to everyone else. I'm H. Conley, and this is Meat and 3 on HRN.
Meat and 3.
Meat and 3.
Meat and 3.
1 meat, 3 sides.
Food, news, and storytelling.
A square meal for your ears.
Meat and 3.
If you've ever been to a supermarket in the States, you've probably seen the ever-exotic world food aisle. It boils down swaths of the globe into a few key sauces and spices, whether that's your shaker of curry powder, bottle of soyaki, or jar of mild Tostitos salsa. But have you ever wondered what foods encapsulate America for the rest of the world? The answer differs from country to country. So for our first story, Sam Girardi explores the landscape of Americanness outside the U.S.
Taylor Early, esteemed host and producer of Meat and 3, is grocery shopping.
We have moon pies, we have original all-American pancake mix, Toastums, Pop-Ups, which I believe are the fake American version of Pop-Tarts.
She's in the American food aisle of her local grocer in the Netherlands. You'll find these all over Europe, housing only the most processed treasures from across the pond. Marshmallow fluff, Oreo O's, you name it. What Western Europe sees as American food is chock full of these stereotypes, especially French fries and hot dogs. Take le sandwich américain, a hamburger on a baguette topped with French fries. Or Americano pizza, covered in fries and hot dogs. These are pretty silly examples, but let's zoom out a bit, beyond Europe. When we instead look at a country America has occupied, the story is a little different. The Philippines was a colony of the United States from 1898 to 1946. America forced cultural reform on the native peoples and viewed their acts of imperialism as noble. One target of this was food. When America set up an education system in the country,
one of the first things they tell Filipinos is that their food is not good enough.
That's Dr. Alex Urquiza, an associate professor at Providence College and author of The Taste of Control. Americans living in the Philippines rejected eating local foods and ingredients, claiming that they were nutritionally inferior to Western foods. Imported canned goods were considered the gold standard of health and cuisine.
If you want to exhibit that you're of upper class, then you don't eat Filipino food. You eat specific kinds of American food. You basically consume the food of the colonizer.
This belief took hold and affects Filipino culture today. Alex explained that while there's no reason a dairy industry in the Philippines wouldn't thrive,
part of the reason why that doesn't exist now is because of this dependence on canned milk that was formed by this mentality that if it's canned, it's better, it's healthier. So you could have fresh sources of milk like Carabao milk, but if you have the money to spend and you want to have what's supposedly like a nutritionally beneficial source of protein for a young child, then you go to canned milk.
This is the dark side of Americanness in Filipino cuisine. But in spite of the pressure, the Filipino people didn't cave to American tastes. American dishes were transformed by Filipinos to cater to their palates. Cane sugar was added to spaghetti sauce to sweeten it. A breakfast of Spam gets a side of garlic fried rice and eggs, a nod to the Spanish period. These are just some examples of Filipino food's long history of cultural exchange.
There's indigenous food, there's influences from China, there's influences from Spain, there's influences from the New World, and then there's influences from the United States.
And this continues today with 2.3 million overseas Filipino workers stationed abroad who consistently return to visit their families.
And I think it's kind of cool that Filipino cuisine, rather than being preserved in amber, is constantly evolving because Filipinos are constantly going around the world. They bring back culinary traditions from Canada, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Latin America, wherever there are Filipinos, they're going to bring back that cuisine. And I think that's probably the coolest definition of what Filipino food is today to me.
Filipino cuisine is unapologetically itself. With over 7,000 islands and millions of overseas workers, it draws from a wealth of local and intentionally chosen global traditions. This unique blend is true to the tastes and lives of the people who made it, and absolutely should be celebrated.
When we think of American farms, we often imagine bucolic pastures tended by a stern white man in overalls. He might hold a pitchfork or drive a massive tractor. That image might fit your average farmer, but there are others in the mix. Changing the way we think about farming and farmers could change the way we think about the world. Next up, Hannah Chenard takes us deep into Western Massachusetts to a farm like few others.
Driving for hours along the rolling forests of Western Mass, you'll come across an unassuming farm stand. Canopied by maple trees, it's a gateway to another way of life. Beyond it stands towering trees and a glowing red farmhouse. There's a hammock and children's toys, goats, pigs, cows, and chickens. Here, you can learn to tap a tree, to graze a cow, to envelop yourself in the beauty of the world. And holding your hand through it all will be a careful, guiding soul named Pepper.
I'm Pepper, and I run Two Mama's Farm. We do funny, quirky farming.
Pepper and her family stand out from the other farmers in the region. For one, there's the obvious. Two Mama's Farm is run by two mamas. They're a queer family that embraces the vast spectrum of ability and gender. But then there's their approach to farming. Their relationship to the land centers on reciprocity and careful stewardship rather than on extraction. Pepper practices permaculture and interplanting, relying mainly on manual labor to raise and harvest crops. The farm is also part of what Pepper calls a community farmstead, where access to land and its bounty are shared with neighbors. That's all in stark contrast to the emphasis on profit, ownership, and efficiency that are at the core of many conventional farms.
Out here, that's overwhelmingly older, white, cis, heterosexual guys that think I'm such a weirdo. I think that they laugh sometimes, and I think that they don't agree, and I think that it confuses them. And I also think that there's some relief and there's some hope in seeing something different and seeing some enthusiasm and seeing all these young adults from the cities come out here and like bring some energy to like a pretty tired old town. If the people around you that are doing it say you're crazy, you're often onto something.
Pepper was raised in Northampton, Massachusetts, a city she refers to as a gay mecca. Growing up among people of differing identities gave her a unique perspective on what the bounds of normalcy can be. in life and in farming.
Like growing up having ice cream and like watching, trans folks and butch folks and folks of all persuasions. I feel like I got a head start in alternative values based on where I grew up and like that funny queer privilege of just kind of knowing, oh, like there is no one right way to live.
Just as Pepper learned there's no one right way to be queer, she learned that there's no one right way to farm.
But I think farmers all need to move from this conservative place of, oh, there's only one right way to do a thing. I think we all need to be more flexible and be constantly learning because things are constantly changing, and really take our expertise and teach new people, and then also be really thrilled when those people surpass us.
Even as a record number of young people leave family farms for other job prospects, Pepper has hope for the future of farming, one that's dependent upon the embrace of so-called alternative values.
I think the generations coming up now really have a different way of knowing about the world, and being born into like such a crisis-y time on our planet, I feel like has really informed, folks that are even just like 10 years younger than me, I feel like have really different language and ways of thinking about things that I think they're going to be better farmers as long as we all keep pushing and looking and being introspective. I think the next generation might be even better.
The lessons we can learn from Two Mama's Farm go beyond how to farm maple sap or plant garlic. We can take from them a curiosity and care, an attention that builds on empathy, not extraction. When we reconsider how we think about our farms, our relationship with the earth changes. We come to appreciate our world for what it is, rather than what it has to offer us.
We'll be right back with more Meat and Three after a brief break. Welcome back to Meat and Three. Whether you're celebrating, socializing, decompressing, or trying to escape your feelings, everyone has their own reasons to drink alcohol, and everyone has their own reasons when they choose not to. These motives can change from day to day and from outing to outing, but an ever-increasing number of young people are choosing to drink less, or not drink at all. Beyond affecting the alcohol and bar industry, this all points to a shift in understanding what we want and who we are. Meat and Three reporter Elizabeth Fisher wonders, is a drinking experience inauthentic if you choose to skip the buzz?
In life, we have a choice, which is the cool thing and not cool thing about free will.
That's Una Austrian, the founder of Catch-All Collective, a woman-owned agency offering a diverse, non-alcoholic portfolio to businesses and bars. She works with brands like Prima Pave, a non-alcoholic Italian sparkling wine, and Farragaya, a 0% ABV spirit made from botanicals sourced in Scotland.
I started this agency to essentially bring together the Avengers of the non-alcoholic space.
I had recently begun examining my relationship with alcohol when I first heard Una interviewed on HRN's show, The Speakeasy. Working in the service industry and living in New York, I found myself drinking most nights, without second thought, even when I didn't necessarily want to. But other people were doing it, and I was having fun, right? At the very least, I was taking the edge off a ridiculous shift. I mean, it's alcohol. Isn't that what it's here for?
There's just been so much association with like alcohol and fun. So moving to the non-alcoholic space, more of like a psychological conversation and kind of like unlearning what has been learned through culture of binge drinking, through the culture of alcohol equals relaxation. So it's undoing all of this psychology that has just been built in through commercials, through interactions, through group mentality, right?
As the world of crafted NA beverages expands, so does the opportunity to reduce stigma. There's less pressure to order a drink at the bar when zero-proof beers and phony Negronis are available. With interesting no-proof cocktails on restaurant menus, opting out of alcohol doesn't mean missing out on sipping a delicious drink at dinner.
The feeling of ordering a non-alcoholic cocktail when it's not on a menu, you're like, hey, can you make me something without alcohol in it? It just kind of like singles out a person. It makes it so much easier when you just point down to a menu and the non-alcoholic option, you order it. It's just another thing that you put into a glass and you give to a person to make them happy.
10 years ago, managing a non-alcoholic portfolio of diverse, thoughtfully sourced brands would have been unthinkable. Beyond society's obsession with wellness and the increasing legalization of cannabis, Facing our collective mortality in 2020 changed people's relationship to booze.
With the pandemic, it shifted a lot of people's mindsets. I think everybody had their own little micro awakenings.
It's never been my intention to stop drinking, only to become more mindful. But I've always equated NA beverages as options for those maintaining total sobriety, as a trade-off. Una suggests mixing 0 or low-proof drinks in between alcoholic ones to slow down your experience and extend time with friends. This was my micro-awakening. The more options we have, the better we are able to understand what we want, how we want to feel, and why.
I think this space allows somebody to really go inward and figure out what their intentions are themselves. I think if you're able to have amazing offerings on your menu, it just doesn't matter. Give people options and be proud of it.
For our last story, we're committing to a bit. The bit got its start when we first started questioning narratives of authenticity. We got excited about restaurants that are so inauthentic to any tradition that they become authentic to a different, higher power. A god called camp. Our 3 New York-based reporters, Jessica Gingrich, Hannah Chenard, and Elizabeth Fisher, escaped the harshness of the city to an island resort in the middle of Times Square. Join them as they bar hop through the resort's several restaurants, find themselves among a crypto convention, read a few passages from Susan Sontag's Notes on Camp, and continually ask WWJBD, what would Jimmy Buffett do? It's 5 o'clock somewhere on Meat and 3.
Hello. We have a question. What's up? Can we sit in Lady Liberty?
Way down here. Like first impressions walking in. First of all, it's clean. It feels like everything is like very purposefully in its place, and I don't mind it. It feels organized. It feels organized. Exactly. So we just got our happy hour margaritas. We could have got a bucket. All right. Cheers. Cheers. I have no complaints about that margarita. None. I've been to other Times Square places in the past, and it's just like, it's like Times Square outside, inside, you know what I mean?
Wow.
This feels like an escape from Times Square.
Yeah.
This
is Margaritaville,
yeah,
so
I mean,
you can't have any anxiety.
No
Yeah.
other place, country, anything exists.
Do you feel
this moment.
soothed?
Being here right now?
Yeah.
I do. You know what? I feel better.
I think that sometimes, like, having things that are, like, offbeat, especially, like, when you're talking... Okay, there is alcohol.
The fake flowers in Manhattan skyline is Margaritaville. Tequila. To Margaritaville. There's more tequila shots? He was trying to like trade crypto with us right now.
I kind of want to try their Bloody Mary.
They go like daiquiri. Okay, if you guys are doing fun things,
Daiquiri.
Like some full-ass experience to end the night. Lots of sugar.
I'm gonna do the 5 o'clock somewhere because like
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. When in Rome, right?
yeah.
The golden hour.
Truly.
But I can't tell if it's the sky or just the lights from the Times Square.
Okay, I'm gonna read out of my book again. It says, indeed, the essence of camp is its love of the unnatural, of the artifice and exaggeration. It goes without saying that the camp sensibility is disengaged, depoliticized, or at the very least, apolitical. It doesn't matter if the service is bad or the food, not that the service is bad, just like it doesn't matter that this is like a food establishment or like resort. It's that you're at Margaritaville.
Yeah. The only Times Square has been like really cool is right now.
Like I said, this is the most fun I've had at Times Square.
I've never gotten drunk in Times Square.
That's our show. Thanks for listening. Learn more about the guests and topics we touched on this week by checking out our show notes. This episode of Meat and 3 was reported by Sam Girardi, Hannah Chenard, Elizabeth Fisher, and Jessica Gingrich. Our lead producer on this episode was Elizabeth Fisher, with support from Jessica Gingrich. Meat and 3 is produced by Taylor Early and me, H. Conley. Our audio engineer for this episode is Armin Spengen. Our theme song was composed by Breakmaster Cylinder. This program is supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. Meat and Three is powered by Simplecast. Meat and Three is a production of Heritage Radio Network, the world's pioneer food radio station. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org and follow us at heritage_radio. And please stay in touch. Whether you have a story idea or just like to say hey, write us at ideas@meatand3.nyc. That's all spelled out.